Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm so excited that you're here because you get to hear from someone who inspires me all the time. And I am lucky to see how she works even just a little bit in her business. And so you're in for a treat today. Liz, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, Amanda. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad. So glad you're here. And we're going to be talking about setting big goals and actually achieving those big goals. But before we dive into how you've done the amazing things you've done in your life and in your business and been able to stay focused, I would love for you to give a little bit more context to those who might not know your name yet.
Yes, my name is Liz, and I run the Luminary Leadership Company. I've been an entrepreneur for about 12 to almost 13 years now, and grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So it came very natural to me to want to do something on my own and just kind of go in a different direction. I've never been very employable. I don't like fitting in molds. So this is a very organic path for me. But the business has evolved over the years. What started as doing really more specifically marketing work for people, maybe 5 years in, I realized that the bottleneck for every single business owner I was working with was themselves. It was, they could not outgrow themselves. They couldn't get the business to outgrow themselves. So it was an evolution into, okay, business strategy, yes, but it has to be alongside leadership. It has to be uncorking the gifts within them so that their success in business became an overflow of success in understanding and really expanding their own capacity. So it's been really fun, and I get to work alongside lots of entrepreneurs, some very successful business owners that keep me on my toes, and I am blessed to do the work I do. We run masterminds. We are advisors for certain businesses, and my team is the reason that we're able to do it all. And I also am a mom of 4 little ones that we homeschool. My husband is home with us. He works within our business and in our home with the kiddos. So it's very divide and conquer over here, and very much a circus most of the time. My kids are young, but it's all super blessed and all very much a gift.
I love your perspective on all of this and the laughter that comes along with it, because it's very much like how you approach a lot of things, which is real and authentic. And that's the part, like, there's so much about you and how you lead that inspires me. And one of which is something that you just said that, I feel so blessed to be seeing just a sliver of the behind the scenes, since we've worked together a little bit, of like how you lead in the background of everything. So like, you have such a gift, and I'm curious if it's a gift you've learned or is it natural? So that's, spoiler alert, that's the question, of letting your team do their work. Like, you truly are a leader and not a boss, if that makes sense. And the team that you have does their work and does it really efficiently. And so I'm curious if it's always been easy for you to delegate or if that's a learned skill.
I would say delegating comes somewhat naturally to me. Like, if I don't want to do something, I want to find someone who wants to do that thing.
That's great.
And we have a kind of a running joke in our family that we have about 25 first cousins that all grew up very close together, that we'd see each other multiple times a week. And I'm in the top, let's see, I'm the 5th of the 25. So I fall at the upper end of the order, which is a luxury in a big kind of ethnic family where there's a pecking order. So anyone younger than you by law in our family can do whatever you ask them to do in terms of like going to get you something or whatever. And that was true when we were little. Like, we were young, we'd be watching TV at my grandparents' house, and I'd be like, I'm thirsty, so I'll ask one of the younger cousins to go get me a drink. But the funny thing is that the younger cousins like totally were like, yep, okay, whatever you want. And like, it was just kind of the nature of the beast. And now it's funny because all these years later, we're all adults. Most of us, like many of us are married with kids, but we still do it to each other, and and it's still respected. So I've been delegating since I was very young. But I will say in business, it was a learned skill in terms of releasing control. So there was a lot that I was struggling to delegate because I felt like I had the competency or it was habitual for me, or I was like nervous. It was like a big thing or something that, money was on the line for. So it was very hard in my earlier years to release control of that. But I think I value freedom and quality of life enough that it outweighs my fear of releasing control. I know it's a lot harder for other people. And I also take a ton of pride in my team. So I don't want to hire task managers or like task masters. Like I'm very much interested, as much as I want to help cultivate the calling and the leader within every entrepreneur I work with. I want to do the same within my team members. We attract very much a team of entrepreneurs, people who have run their own businesses. They're very entrepreneurial minded. They're not employee minded. So they take a lot of pride in their work and they make it easy to, want to work with them to help them grow and evolve and give them opportunity to do that, which means you have to give them opportunity to make mistakes. You have to give them opportunity to take ownership. So we just create a culture of that, right? Like when someone makes a mistake on our team, they're so quick to own it because they get celebrated when they do. We're like, okay, awesome. Like now we know, where it's stemming from. Let's fix it. Versus the blame game or people being afraid to take ownership because they think they might get in trouble or have some kind of issue. So it's all about the culture you create and really a desire to give your people the best possible home to grow into who they're called to be within your business.
That's beautiful. And I love the story of how it started so early. I mean, that's
It helps
fantastic.
being at the top of the pecking order. If I were at the bottom, I don't know how much I'd like it because I'd be fetching everything for everyone. But I mean, we still get together all the time. We all live right near each other. And I don't think twice about asking one of my younger cousins to do something for me. And they jump up with joy. They're like, yeah, of course. You're my older cousin. Like, of course I'm going to do what you ask me.
That's
Just can't
so
abuse
good.
it.
Right, right. And I think that goes into how you now lead a team. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really made you ready to do that. Whereas I appreciate the talk about the control part because that's the part, I mean, I struggle with this. I think
Mm-hmm.
all entrepreneurs do because to your earlier point of being unemployable, we
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy like kind of doing our own thing and sometimes that looks different. And because we often have to start out scrappy, doing all the things, it's then really hard to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Because it's yours. You've figured out a way, and it's easy to convince yourself that someone's not going to be able to do it better, which
Oh
is
gosh.
almost never true.
Right. I remember an early coach of mine saying like I was trying to learn how to delegate, which I feel like like something I'm consistently learning.
Yeah.
And it's definitely more of a learned skill for me. And in doing that, I was like not wanting to release something. I can't remember what it was. And he was like, Amanda, you just need to find someone that can do it at 70% of what you think you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
think I'm doing. I feel like that was a key phrase there,
Right. Yeah, that was
you know,
intentional.
the 70% and then let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, it was so helpful for me to see, like, oh, well, that frees my brain up to do something else.
Right.
What a concept.
Right. Yep.
And so,
So
yeah,
true.
we all have to learn that. So, one of the things that I have really enjoyed hearing you talk about more and more lately is this idea of a big next.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about goals on this podcast and with my clients and anyone that I'm working with. And a lot of people really struggle. Like some people know the big vision of what they want to do and then struggle to figure out how to get there. But some people even struggle understanding what that thing is,
Yeah.
that big next thing. So could you explain that concept and how it came about?
Yeah, I think for me, it came about from just a really hard situation. So, about a year ago, I was pregnant with our fifth baby. And at 17 weeks, we found out that he no longer had a heartbeat. And about a week after that, I delivered him at home and then immediately started hemorrhaging. And what we thought was going to be, go to the hospital, get some fluids, and you'll be fine, turned into a pretty catastrophic event where I ended up losing about 60% of my blood volume. And in that, I ended up having a life-saving surgery. And when I woke up from that surgery, it wasn't like right when I woke up or anything, but within the next couple of days, in reflecting with my husband of like what we had lost and what we had just gone through and what we'd almost lost, it was just this really clear moment of like, oh, wait, like I've been doing a lot of things that are not aligned with what I'm called to do. Like they're not rooted in my gifts or my values or where I'm called to go. So it was just this moment of just mentioning to my husband of like, from this moment forward, like I don't do anything that God's not calling me to do anymore. And that includes in work. And it was an interesting timing because after that, for about a month, I was in bed. Like the first few weeks, I didn't have enough strength to even, walk or anything like that. So it was a very humbling month for me. And after being in business for 12 years when this happened, I had never had like my calendar totally wiped clean. I mean, I had 4 kids prior to that and never taken a maternity leave, like just kind of still running things with a baby on my hip. And that was just kind of the nature of it. And this was the first time in my career that I had just like everything came to a screeching halt. Now that's where it's a blessing to know how to delegate because my team stepped in completely and I didn't have to worry about a thing. But what was interesting was because everything came off the calendar, when it was time, a month or two later to start putting the pieces back together and having that clarity of like, I don't do anything that is not aligned and where I'm meant to go, I realized how little had to come back on my calendar because I was doing so much that was really just maintaining what was, but it felt so important. It was like all the things that had to get done or that were screaming the loudest or, fulfillment things or launches that I felt like we should do or revenue driven things or clients or whatever, like just a billion things, habitual things I'd done for years that I was like, I don't think this is where we're going anymore. So this idea of your big next, I had been my whole life have wanted to write a book. And in that season when I was in bed and we didn't have like a TV in our bedroom and I did not want my phone anywhere near me after that because I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to get, everyone was well intentioned, but like I wasn't in the mood to talk. So I was pretty, isolated and with my own thoughts a lot. And I just felt this nudge like that your big next is something very different than what you've been pursuing all these years. Like all those years, I feel like I was like scaling and goal setting and 10x for the sake of 10x and pushing and without ever really making sure that it was like, wait, how does this align with what God's calling me to in this season? Does this align with who I want to be as a mother and a wife? Does this feel in congruence with who I'm being called to become? And the answer was no, 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 like over and over. So this idea was placed in my heart of your big next, of like, kind of birthed out of a season of serious trial for me, of realizing that it's not just about more for the sake of more. It's shedding what's unnecessary and stepping fully into what you're called to do. It's like this, God ordained calling that pulls you out of the grind of maintaining that is so common in entrepreneurship, or pulls you out of the ashes of busy work and really points you directly towards your life's work. And with that, the cool thing is in pursuing it, you naturally experience the momentum that maybe you were trying to strong arm your way into all along, or the freedom that you'd been hoping that years of, fighting in your business would get you there, or impact that you really wanted to see, or whatever it was. Like it all becomes available because it requires 100% of the time a full capacity expansion of you. Like the you that is called into this thing is not the you that's going to be able to do it. You are not yet equipped. You don't have what you need. You don't have the resources. It should feel impossible. Yet it's for you. And there's something about it when you sit with it, it feels really light and right for you. So I was in that season myself. And then finally, when I had enough strength again and was like slowly easing back into things, I started writing and the book started coming to life. And it's been the manuscript's done. It's in the editing process and
Yay.
It's very exciting. And it was a big part of my big next. It was like, I have been living and running my business in a very specific way. And I've been called to do this thing over here that feels too scary and too beyond what is possible for me right now. But when I really think about it and sit with it, I know it's the right thing. So it's time. And in doing that, I got to experience my own evolution and my own up leveling that wasn't this like manufactured thing that maybe I'd tried for in the past of like, oh, I need to learn this skill, or I need to develop my confidence, or I need to hire this coach to teach me this thing or learn this new strategy. It was just like a very natural overflow of who I was becoming. And because of that, I experienced the abundance that comes with that. Like when I say doors opening faster than I could keep up with, opportunities that I had like on my vision board, a bajillion years ago, like happening naturally, unexpectedly, without my effort, it just is, it all just starts to fall into place. So that's kind of the general premise of it. And it's been really exciting to watch many of my clients start to embrace it and see, the glory on the other side of pursuing it.
Thank you so much for sharing so much of that story. I know the beginning part of how that came about is so tough. And I appreciate you being willing to share that part, because I think a lot of times we hear someone on a podcast or see someone talk about something or read a book and we think, oh, it must be easy for them, right? And so it wasn't easy for you to navigate that at all. And I appreciate you sharing, and that stepping into the idea of a big next feels so scary for a lot of people. Like, I don't know anyone who isn't, like, it's almost like if it's not, I think you even said this. I think I heard you say, like, if it's not scary, if it's not making you a little bit nervous, is it even worth it?
Right. It's definitely not like the way I define it is it's very different than just like growth or even exponential growth or your next big vision. It not only should be scary because it is outside the realm of possibility today. So like anything outside of what feels within your reach feels like very unnerving. It's very uncertain. There's risk that comes with it, but it also should make your closest advisors raise an eyebrow and be like, are you sure? Like that's, the people who are normally like all in on everything you do when it's your big next. It's your big next. It's not theirs. So it's gonna lend to discomfort for them. Right. Those are two usually pretty good indicators that like, yeah, this could be it. And if it doesn't tick some of those boxes, it might just be the next big goal, but it might not be the thing that expands you into who you're meant to be.
I appreciate that differentiating statement there of like what it could be, because it can still be a goal. You can still have the goal there, but it might not be the big next. As you were talking, I remembered back to several years ago, and it was before I jumped into the accountability space. So before, similar to you in the idea of like I was teaching marketing, not doing it, but teaching marketing. And I knew ironically enough, when I was writing my book, the book coach that I was working with, I came to the table with like all these blog posts that I had written before and all these podcast episodes. And he said, Amanda, it seems like you're writing the book you feel like you should write and not the one you want to write. What do you want to write? I was like, I don't know that answer today. I don't know what to do with this. And so through a lot of thought, I just kind of shifted into this new realm, which I didn't really know what it was. But in that process, I shut down a very successful membership. Not one single person thought this was a good idea. Like everyone was like, that's your most revenue. Why are you tanking your business? And I knew that it was the right thing. Now, could I have phased it out a little bit more? Probably so. But when I knew and I needed to move forward. And I'm remembering that feeling of, I didn't call it the big next, but it feels like that was in that moment, that's what that was. And you put words to it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's so nice. So once someone knows what the big next is, or maybe they already know, or whatever the case is, it's then time to take action and pursue the big next. And that's where people listening to this podcast really seem to struggle. And that's why I'm here, right? That's what I'm talking about, following through when things are difficult. And you have a beautiful way of helping your clients see how to put blocks on their calendar, which you call the visionary CEO blocks.
Yep.
How do you help your clients find what works for them? Because you're very, very, very intentional and good about saying, this works for me, but it may not work for you. So find what works for you. How have you navigated that with your clients?
Well, I think that's part of the leadership work that I had to come to the realization to, was that I was responsible to my clients, but not for them. So anything that I bring them, like, let me back up a second, Amanda. So I feel like we live in a culture today, especially with social media, where people are very quick to have this level of entitlement that they think everything that is distributed out into the world should be somehow magically molded to what makes sense for them. And that's why I love leadership work, because leadership work says, no, 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 we rise above that nonsense. And we know that it is our responsibility as a sovereign adult to take whatever value is put in front of us, even if it's not shared through the same lens, or even if it isn't exactly as we would want it, or even if it doesn't take into account our circumstances, and then just put it through our own filter. Like, that is our responsibility as the receiver. But the world says it's your responsibility as the one creating, which is literally impossible, because there are a
Yes,
bajillion
it is.
people with a bajillion different life experiences. So you're never going to please everyone. Like, just the other day, I put up a social media post with a picture of the food my kids were eating at their homeschool co-op one day. And it was just like, oh, how proud I was of how hard we've worked to make sure that they're eating clean. And it was, grilled chicken and hard-boiled eggs and cut up peppers and kiwi and whatever. And then I got a flood of messages from people being like, oh my gosh, tell me how you do this. Like, my 2-year-old won't eat anything, or I have such a picky eater, or is it too late for my 10-year-old, or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll do some stories just sharing a little bit about how we do it. So I'm sharing, just some of the things that have worked for us, because we were doing it very differently when we had our first child, of like making him whatever he wanted for dinner while we ate this. So just talking about how we've shifted that. And then you start to get the messages from people who are like, well, you have no idea, like that's easy for you to say you don't have a special needs child, or that's easy for you to say, you don't have as tight of a budget as us. And it's like, that I totally get it. But there is no version of the story that we get to manipulate every detail to make everybody comfortable. So I take the same approach in my leadership coaching. So when I bring something like a framework to my clients, I give them a framework, not a step-by-step action plan. So this is a framework that is very malleable to their reality. I homeschool. So when my mentor, whose kids are all out of the house because they're all grown up, tells me how to do something, and I'm like, he's nuts. Like, he's not taking into account like how many kids I have and they're running around. I'm like, okay, cool. It's my responsibility to take his framework of what he just taught me and make it fit my life. So that's kind of the visionary CEO schedule, is that, right? Like, where it is a schedule template or a framework, which I'm happy to share, the general premise of it with your audience. We have a template that they can download. And it's to be taken and then to fit them. So what it is it's 7 specific blocks that, if you want to be a visionary CEO, which is kind of like who you need to be in pursuing your big next, like the ability to step into that next level. And those 7 blocks need to exist at least once a week in your weeks. Now, for me, some of those blocks show up 5 or 7 days a week. For you, it might be once, right? Like, it depends totally on your business model. It depends on how much time capacity you have. It depends on your goals and what you're pursuing. But the idea is that visionary CEOs always ensure that these 7 things exist and are honored in their week to ensure they're progressing the right areas of their life. So I've really worked hard with our clients to make sure they understand of like, and you have to make it work for you. But nothing is an excuse as to why you can't experience these 7. And whether you do all 7 every day, whether you do 1 each day of the week, I don't care. Do it how it makes sense to you. But these will all provide both evidence and progression towards what you want most. And take it or leave it kind of thing. So it's worked very well for our clients, and many of them have struggled. Different personality types struggle with different types of structure. So the nice thing I like about this is it's not super formulaic. It's not super structured, because I have clients that are like, I don't like to feel like my time is pinned down to start my week. And then I have other ones who are like, if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. I need this super structured. So you can really flex it according to like what feels the most natural and what you're most likely to stick with.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I personally use this system. So I learned it from you back, oh gosh, maybe a year ago in one of the intensives, which I highly recommend everyone participate in one of those. And it was so fun. I'm even remembering like the few days that we were doing it, I was like out on my back patio, like working on my calendar and making it pretty, because that's part of my personality, right? Like
Right.
if it's pretty, it really helps me. And I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but it's that early morning block, that time before you've consumed anything else, and that really works for me in the morning. And so I just started writing, and as you know, like I've been trying to speak more and doing specific speaking topics, and I came up with those topics because of that time.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so thank you. Now I get to say thank you for that, because
Yeah.
it's so nice to see it come out. And that wasn't like what I was trying to do in that time. It just kind of came out of that time.
Yeah, and it's just about like so often when we're running a business, we're in the weeds, right? Like the bulk of our time, if you were to do a time audit, is spent on low leverage tasks because they scream the loudest. So my inbox is full, my social media needs to be taken care of, my team has a million questions in Slack, my Voxer messages are backing up, my client needs this answered, whatever, you name it. The idea of the visionary CEO, though, is you spend the bulk of your time in high leverage moves. So you're carving out the time to intentionally create those. The other thing you're spending a lot of time doing, which feels very counterintuitive in the beginning, it's like a detox period. When you are really busy and you do have a ton on your plate, and maybe you haven't delegated well, and there's a lot riding on you that does move the needle financially for you. Like you're like, I have to pay the bills. Like this stuff has to get done. It's this transitionary period of realizing that time to think and ideate and innovate is not frivolous. It's 100% necessary and very high leverage. So what you're talking about was carving out that time to actually think, not consuming someone else's thoughts in a book or whatever. It's not getting work done. It's doing the ideating that is going to lead to what's next versus maintaining what is.
And I can attest that it works. And that was like you're saying, it's kind of a hard habit to break, because I exercise in the morning, and oftentimes I like listening to podcasts, yours being one of them. Like you're in my earbuds as I'm lifting, the kettlebell. And I enjoy doing that. So I was like, oh, I have to try and break this habit. And so I'll listen to music now, but I try not to listen to podcasts, because when I get to my desk and do that work in the morning of just getting things down, and the deep work that I need to do, the things that are the high leverage moves that I now do very much intentionally in the morning because of this. And it's like, dang, I can start the day. Like
Right.
I can do this. Like I feel like so on fire because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely works. It'll change your business and your life.
Yeah, it really has. So I'll make sure to put the link in the show notes, because thank you for giving that free resource out there of
Yeah.
the 7 blocks.
Yeah. They can also just DM me the word template and I'll send it to them if it's easier on Instagram too.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So everyone listening to this wants to do the big things in their life, and they also have other things like kids and spouses and families and all the things that are happening. The person that's like, I love all of this, I'm feeling really excited about the big next or this concept. What would you suggest that they do? Because I always like to give a next step. You know me, I'm like laser
Yep.
focused on like, what is the next thing you're doing this week? And what would you suggest that they do after listening to this episode?
Well, I think the first step is just getting radically honest about where you're at. Like, am I in maintenance mode, or am I already on the right trajectory? Have I been working really hard, hoping that it leads to some next level? Or when I assess what I'm tangibly doing with my time and my thinking, is it even on that path? So the gut gut check question I would ask is, if I were to do what I'm doing right now for another 10 years, would I be fulfilled? Would I be where I want to be? Would my life look different in the best possible ways? Will I have become the parent or the spouse and have raised the family and like the other buckets of life? Like, will my business be the vehicle to fulfill on all of these other things that really matter to me, or will it have been the distraction or the detour away from those things? So to me, I always start with, you got to drop the pin. You got to look in reality, because so often, very well intentioned, but entrepreneurs live in unreality sometimes, where we are like head down, work really hard. Hopefully the compound effect kicks in. And then we look up 5 years later and we're like, wait, why am I not happy with where I'm at? Well, you were sprinting in the wrong direction. So you really got to look at that first. And then I think the next key thing, and this is the work that we do, in our mastermind that you probably see a lot of since you're behind the scenes in there, is, what is your sweet spot? Like, what is the work that makes you come alive? What are you most naturally drawn to? What work energizes you versus drains you? Because then you can start to make your list of the things that need to be delegated, that need to come off your plate, that need to be deferred until a future season, that need to be completely eliminated because they're not really moving the needle anyway. And then you go into a season of pruning. It's an intentional season of pruning. When I went through my crisis a year ago, I was thrust into an unintentional season of pruning, not by my own choice, right? So everything came off my plate. And I feel like sometimes that's God's way of being like, well, you weren't going to do it, so I'll help you do it. And it's going to feel like a 2x4 to the forehead. So to avoid the 2x4, creating actual seasons of pruning where you assess. I do this with my team every 2 weeks. Hey, what's on your plate that feels really aligned? What's on your plate that's energizing you? What's crept onto your plate that's like draining you? What's on your plate that's like not moving the needle for our business that can just go away? Like, do we have any gaps? Who do we need to hire? So stripping away what is no longer on the path to your big next. And that can include mindsets, like conversations you have with yourself, relationships, people on your team. When you choose to step boldly into your big next, there's going to be a lot of people, things, ways of thinking, habits that are not going where you're going now. You don't get to go there tethered to all your old crap. So you have to take a time to untether, to unhitch from all the things that's going to prevent you from pursuing it. And then it's a mental commitment. Now, obviously, there are a lot of tangible things that we teach in doing that, like the Visionary CEO schedule, like really identifying, like, how do you clarify your big next, right? Like, we're talking about something really incredible and greater than what exists in your life today. There's a lot of discernment that has to come from that. But just mentally committing, like, okay, it's time. Like, I'm not messing around anymore. I'm not kicking this can down the road anymore. It's not going to happen someday. It's not even going to happen next week. Like, I have the faith and the belief that it is time, that I will expand, and now we're taking the steps forward. So those are the kind of the 4 initial lay the groundwork before you get into the nitty gritty work that I would recommend.
I love it. I couldn't have said it better. It's perfect. Because we do have to do that. And that's oftentimes what no one really wants to spend the time doing. Kind of like what you said earlier about me and the thinking time, where it almost feels frivolous.
Yeah.
But it's so critical, because otherwise it's like you said, we wake up 5 years later and think, oh gosh, what was I doing for the last 5 years? But you were busy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, Liz, thank you so much. I know everyone is going to want to run to connect with you, whether it's on Instagram, and I can't wait for that book to come out. I will be shouting it from the rooftop. So where can people find you?
So our podcast is also Your Big Next, go figure. So we've evolved it. It used to be the Luminary Leadership Podcast. It's now Your Big Next. So come on over there and subscribe, because that's where we share our most elevated content. If you DM me on Instagram, I'm at Eliz Hartke at the moment. I'm debating changing my Instagram handle. I haven't decided
we can
yet.
always change it in the show notes.
Yes. Find me on there, DM me the word template, because then I will send you that Visionary CEO template, but then you'll also be on my insider list where you get all our best information that I don't share. I'm not a good social media-er, so you're not going to get much from me on there in comparison to our insider list. So those are the two best places to come hunt me down.
I love it. And I highly recommend get on the email list. It's good, good, good stuff. I love all the emails. And you're really fun on social media. I mean,
When I show up.
yeah, when you're there, it's so fun. So I appreciate what you put out. Thank you so much for being here today, Liz.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and week and keep being accountable.